There we go.
Right. G'day, everyone. We'll get started. Welcome to the forum. We will get started shortly. We're almost on time, so we're a little bit early. So yeah, we'll get started shortly. We are recording the forum. You'll probably get a notification on to that extent. It's just about making it available to anyone who's unable to join today. So yeah, we'll do that. Now I'm not sure if you can all, if you want to, if you can start your video and that. Do you have the ability to use your video? Yep, cool. Okay, yeah. No pressure if you haven't done your hair today or anything, but yeah. And I just want to check you actually could unmute as well, so that if you could want to ask questions as we go along, that'd be great. So we've just clicked over to midday, so we'll get started in respect of everyone's time. And yeah, really appreciate plenty of people joining this session today. So we are recording because I just got a notice telling me that. So yeah, let's get going. So as we start, I'd just like to acknowledge traditional owners and custodians of the lands where we gather across Queensland and possibly across Australia, with some people joining from interstate. And we pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important and varied roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have played and continue to play in relation to the land, sky and waterways that have been used for outdoor activities for countless thousands of years. Last week was NAIDOC week, and the theme was 50 years deadly. So I guess one of the things that I took out of it was it doesn't have to be NAIDOC week to celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and culture. So I'm in Meanjin, now known as Brisbane, on the land of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. So if you'd like to, you can pop in the chat the name of the country that you're on. And I'd just like to acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining us today too. I just saw in the chat, Chris has just said he can't hear the audio, but others have said they can. So hopefully, Chris, you get that sorted. It might just be at your... Oh, Mark's got audio next to mic button. Okay. It'd be an odd meeting where they didn't enable you to hear. But anyway, yeah, hopefully it's working now. Very good. All right. Welcome to the forum today. My name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. My co-host today is Mark Squires, the Industry Support Manager of Outdoors Queensland. Thank you, Mark, for helping out with today's forum. A big welcome to all Outdoors Queensland members and others to the forum about the updated Australian Adventure Activity Standard and Good Practice Guides. And you're going to see the acronym or the abbreviation AAAS a lot, and I'll probably say AAAS and GPGs, but I try not to use too many acronyms. But as we go along, this one's one that is going to have a few acronyms, so bear with me with that one. So Outdoors Queensland is a member of the Outdoor Council Australia, along with the other organisations whose logos are on the slide there. As I said, this session's being recorded. It's going to be available through our website for anyone who's unable to join today, or if you want to rewatch it, that's up to you. Really encourage you to ask questions as we go along today. We do have the chat and also the Q&A feature, but you can just raise your hand and ask your question in person as well. And just out of courtesy, if you could just mute yourself until you're ready to speak, and then hopefully remember to unmute when you do want to speak. That's always a good track for young players, I think. So just a bit of background on the Adventure Activity Standard. So the Outdoor Council Australia is the national peak body for outdoor activities. We've got the vision, which is the healthier and more resilient nation through being active in the outdoors, which I think is something we can all get behind. And basically, each of you who's involved in outdoor activities across the country is helping OCA achieve that vision. So that's a great accomplishment and a good vision, I think, for the country. So as I said, the ACA is the holder of the Australian Adventure Activity Standards and associated good practice guides on behalf of the national outdoor sector. There's the board of directors, and we have one of the board here on the call today. Darren Osmond joined the board recently and is the rep of Outdoors Queensland on the ACA board. So thanks, Darren, for what you do and are doing for the outdoor sector. All of the ACA board are volunteers in those roles, so and it is a lot of work, having been there previously myself. So it is appreciated, which is good to see. So the review of the Australian Adventure Activity Standards, it's been funded by state and territory governments right across Australia. And the model being used to review, it's basically blending the different types of research. And that diagram on the screen is sort of the graphical depiction of the process to get to where we are now. So early on, there were industry workshops, focus groups, and surveys. Towards the end, the 3 breakout groups on the side of the screen there on leadership, diversity, equity, inclusion, and safety were formed to consider some proposed changes that came out of the earlier stages of the review. So we're now at stage 6, the public consultation and pilot testing. And the ACA, as you're probably all aware, is seeking feedback from across the industry on the updated draft documents. As I said, if you've got any questions, please sing out as we go along. We'll get into it, but I just wanted to flag that. Please let me know. So this one sets out the timeline for these final stages of the project. Dave Marsden, I should say Dr. David Marsden, he's the project lead. He's actually undertaking some pilot testing of the draft documents right now, while it's out for public consultation. So just to check it in practice, whether the draft documents work. But right now we're asking for the feedback on the draft documents. So what's going to happen then is during August, all that feedback will be considered, and if necessary, the documents will be rewritten into a final version for release in September and launched by the Outdoor Council of Australia before the National Outdoor Education Conference up in Cairns in September. So that's sort of the process we're working to, but we do need feedback by the 31st of July. So that's the key deadline for this stage of the process. So about the Australian Adventure Activity Standard, so all the key requirements are housed in the standard. The information in the core good practice guide is relevant to all outdoor activities, and then the activity-specific good practice guides provide extra information for a particular activity based on advice from technical experts. And that was the framework that was set out back in 2019 when the national standard was developed. After the original documents were released in 2019, it was actually recognised that there's a place for another level of document, and the ACA issued guidance notes in relation to severe weather and also employment practices in the outdoors. So part of this review, it's being proposed that guidance notes be renamed explanatory notes and given a formal place in the AAAS system. So that's one of the proposed changes, that those explanatory notes will actually be part of the system, and they'll sort of sit in there just to explain extra things that aren't covered in the good practice guides or the standard. This one's a bit of a technical one, but we just wanted to flag it as a proposed change. So the introduction to the original standard actually says, the current standard says, the documents are designed as a voluntary good practice framework for adventure activity providers. So after the review, the proposed draft actually omits the word voluntary and says they're an industry good practice framework covering safety, environmental, and cultural responsibilities and service delivery. So it's basically because in some places land and water managers have made compliance with the AAAS mandatory. So the word voluntary can be seen as a contradiction. And in any event, how these documents are positioned, they're industry guidance. So it's up to outdoor operators to decide whether to comply. So the word voluntary doesn't really add a lot to that initial introduction in the standard. So I just wanted to flag that as one of the changes. It's not the biggest change, but I just wanted to let you know. This is sort of a just an explanation of the scale, I guess, of the outdoor sector, and that these documents have actually been written with all of these different types of organisations or groups in mind. So right through from the participant, at the core of all of this, and through all of those other different types of organisations and groups, is where the Australian Adventure Activity Standards are intended to provide guidance. So that's just to sort of think about where you fit in there, but also to think about how these documents work right across the outdoor system. All right. Alan, this is the one I was sort of referring to before. Where do the AAS fit in relation to various other types of guidance? So legislation, then regulation and codes of practice. And this is sort of the hierarchy of how these documents work. And the industry standards fall in there, in the middle there. So that's sort of where they fit as a high level guide to that space. All right. That's the headline piece, I suppose. That it's guidance on matters of safety, compliance, and safety delivery, as well as the environmental and cultural protections. And it's been slightly reworded into the new introduction. But we'll get into the proposed changes. So there's 4 major changes proposed to these standard and good practice guides in these updated documents. So these first 4 changes, they're all proposed to the core good practice guide and will then flow into the activity specific good practice guides. And we'll go through these changes to the core in depth in the forum. And yeah, as I said, feel free to ask questions as we go along. The various changes to the activity specific good practice guides, they're really related to these ones that are in the core. So, all right, number 1 in that list. So dependency in the original or the current core good practice guide is defined in terms of reliance on activity leaders. I'm not going to read out all of that stuff on the screen at the top above the arrow, but then in this new updated version, dependency is proposed to be defined in terms of reliance on the provider's systems, process, and operational support, which may include the activity leaders. So the section 1.2.1, which I've got there on the screen, the source, it actually provides more info to help determine whether a person's a dependent participant and how to determine the level of dependence, because this is also needs to be taken in context. So if anyone has any comments on that, feel free to put your hand up or yeah, but it's basically about changing it from dependence on the activity leader to dependence on the provider's systems, processes and practices, which is the red bit in that text. Any comments, questions? Nope. Cool. All right. The next one of the 4 headline changes, I guess, is benefit risk assessment. So benefit risk assessment wasn't included in the original AAS, what's in place now. It is proposed to be included in the risk management section of the core good practice guide. And there's a Appendix G of the new draft is a reference resource which has been provided to explain how outdoor operators might use benefit risk assessment. And it is included as an option. It's not saying you must do a benefit risk assessment every time. So the wording in Appendix G actually says benefit risk assessment may be best understood as an integrated way of thinking about risk rather than a single prescriptive method. And it's contrasted with conventional risk management, which treats risk as a purely negative phenomenon to be eliminated or minimized. Benefit risk assessment broadens the view and basically holds that exposure to a degree of risk is itself a source of benefit. So this is sort of reflecting what outdoor operators have probably done for a long time, but it's been formalised into the benefit risk assessment process, which basically, I guess, came out since the AAAS was released in 2019. So it talks about how you can, it gives guidance, I suppose, about thinking about the benefit risk assessment as an overlay to the rest of your risk assessment process. Putting in place a risk management system and then basically adding an assessment of benefit and benefit versus risk judgment to, I guess, elevate your risk assessment process or your safety assistance. So it's all about balancing the benefit the activity delivers to the participants to the risks that are involved in the activity. So I would recommend having a look at that Appendix G. It's got some really good resources in it, and it's certainly worth a look. But it's also Section 2.2 is in the risk management section of the core of the draft core, which is where it refers to Appendix G as well. Questions, comments? Oh, cool. The next one of the 4 headline ones is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the original AAAS didn't have a dedicated section focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there's actually a new section in the draft, Section 4, and all the subsequent sections have been renumbered. So if you're used to Section 7 of the current document, which was called leadership, that's now going to be renumbered to 8, etc. So Section 4, the diversity, equity, inclusion section, says basically the stuff on the screen there. Adventure activities are delivered by and for people of diverse identities, abilities, cultures, life experiences, and circumstances.
Yeah,
and
this is Les's one from today. If you could just sign that one for me, please. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Just there.
Not sure who that is. It's someone.
Thank you. Continue eating and then go talking.
Anyway, we'll keep going. So it is important for providers to recognise that diversity and provide equitable opportunities for safe and meaningful participation. As you know, as it says on the screen, it's fundamental to safe and effective practice. So it actually applies to participants, leaders, and any other people involved in the delivery of an activity. Applies to interactions between activity leaders and participants, between participants, amongst the activity leaders, and between any of those and other people encountered during an activity. So that's sort of the wording straight out of the new draft. So I just wanted to flag that that's been included as a deliberate change to the current version. Any comments, questions? Oh, right. The fourth one of the 4 is changes proposed to what's currently called leadership. So the Section 7 of the original core GPG is called leadership. So it's proposed to be replaced with Section 8, which is called responsibilities and roles. And the reason for that change actually goes back to the first key change we discussed, the move from thinking about dependence in terms of reliance on an activity leader to thinking more broadly about dependence on the providers and the providers' systems. And the change to responsibility and roles actually allows guidance regarding responsibility and role of the provider, as well as responsibilities and roles of the actual leaders. So there is some logic behind it. It's not just to make the title longer. So Section 8.1 of the updated or the draft core GPG sets out a responsibilities and roles framework, which provides guidance to outdoor providers around defining roles clearly and supporting the people who have different roles. So without just reading out everything on the screen, the provider holds primary responsibility for the activity as a whole. And then providers should identify what responsibilities an activity requires before assigning people to roles. And then the leaders can operate within the framework and the plans and resources supplied by a provider, but don't take on the primary responsibility themselves. And a key way of thinking about this is roles are defined by responsibilities they carry, not by a job title. And it has been taken into account that in some organisations where particularly small or solo operators, the provider can be the leader in the field, but there are different responsibilities when acting as a provider and acting as a leader. So sometimes one person has multiple responsibilities, and they're set out in a way that they can be clearly understood in the system, I guess. So there's a bit of guidance on that. Next section. So Section 8.5.1 of the draft core GPG says the provider must ensure that each person in a leadership role has knowledge, skill, and experience their role requires, considering the context of the activity, the participant group, the environment, and any particular conditions. So then it goes on to talk about the three dimensions there to set the leader profile that an outdoor provider should consider. So the availability of support, that's about what the environment offers, not what the leader brings. The domains, number 2 there in the middle, that's actually the knowledge, skills, and experience content that's required. And then the capability level describes the autonomy and complexity that the role needs. So there's 3 different levels. And the provider, the intent is under this framework, the provider will combine all 3, set the required profile, then verify the person against it before assigning them to a particular role. So it's basically a framework for what I think most outdoor operators probably do intuitively, where you look at what's required for a particular program, but this is about setting it out in I guess, an organised framework. We can go through. All right. So this first dimension is the activity context or the support availability, and it describes the environment's contribution rather than the leader's capability. So a highly capable leader operating in a wilderness environment still requires the profile to provider to set the profile at wilderness level. It's not about how capable the leader is. So this is about where you're going to do the activity, and you'll get basically these ones. It's just about where is it happening and what sort of support is available. The next one, this is where the type or the capability of the different domains is assessed by a provider. So there's 9 different ones. Not all of them, might be relevant to every activity, but yeah, there's a various type of domains that are for consideration in relation to that. There's a really good guidance on this in Appendix L for the knowledge, skills, and experience for leaders, and then the similar sort of guidance document in Appendix M as well. So what it basically gets to is the level of knowledge, skill, and experience required does then relate back to the previous scale about the settings as well. So it's just about considering that for your activity. This one, the the third dimension we talked about before, the foundation, intermediate, and advanced. They're indicative and they're about guiding your judgment, not replacing it. So, and it should be noted that volunteer leaders can sit at advanced or intermediate through experience and verification. It's not a reflection of whether they're paid or not. It's it's a reflection of the level of responsibility and autonomy that that the leader can, that the role requires, the activity requires. So and also a paid commercial guide might be sitting at foundation level for an unfamiliar activity or environment. So just thinking of it that way, and it's pretty clear in the document that paid status and capability are independent concepts, to recognise that some some volunteers are extremely high on the capability level, as well as some paid leaders. This one is part of the framework where it brings it all together. This describes how you can acquire knowledge and skill, and basically says you can, in the draft, it says you can develop knowledge, skill, and experience through one or more of the following ways. And it specifically says no single way has primacy. So providers should select and apply a combination of the most appropriate methods for the activity context, the person's background, and the responsibilities of the role. So it covers formal qualifications and training courses, whether it's higher education or the vet system, industry training, the likes of Paddle Australia's training, or the climbing training, and then provider-based verification, whether it's a club or it could be an organisation level, has its own training with alignment to industry benchmarks. So the only one in the standard, in the draft, that it says is mandatory is first aid. It says it must go through AQF recognised formal training. Everything else can be a combination of the different pathways. And yeah, there's some really good guidance on that. This has come about because it, in the original, or the current standard, it basically referenced as an example the vet quals, or it does reference that right now. And some people took that to mean the only way you could acquire knowledge and skill was through having a vet qual, and that wasn't the intent of the document. So it's been rewritten to make it very clear that there's different ways of acquiring knowledge and skills as you go along. Any questions on that one? Cool. Cool. A key part of all of this is verification of it. So, and this is where it brings in currency in the draft. So it's section 8.5.5. So those four elements, knowledge, skill, experience, and currency, all have to be verified in context, not just historically. And the currency element has been put in there as a critical element because it's saying someone who's capable in the role 2 years ago may not be capable now. So the good practice guide then says the verification decision must be documented by a provider, including the basis for their decision, the pathway or pathways used, the date, and who conducted the verification. So it's just about putting it clearly why a certain person, how you've verified that they're the right person for a leader or assistant leader role. All right. Sorry, there's any questions? Oh, cool. I'm happy to take questions. I just hope you're not scared of me just jibber jabbering along. So, yeah. So the activity-specific good practice guides, as I said, those are the main changes from the current AAAS to the draft are in the core good practice guide, and those changes then flow into the format and contents of the activity-specific good practice guides. The activity-specific guides still provide information about group sizes and supervision ratios for groups of minors or groups of adults. I haven't been involved in all the technical working groups, so I'm not sure if there's been other tweaks in the various good practice guides. But what I would do, I'd encourage you to compare the original to the new draft for your activity of choice and provide feedback on that. We want to make sure that the documents still provide good advice to all outdoor operators with dependent participants. So if there's one particular activity that you're most interested in, it is worth doing that exercise of having a look at the new documents compared to the current ones. But most of it is actually basically reformatting and aligning with the changes. Rob, got a question?
Hi Dom, it's Jono here with Rob. Just a quick one. With all these changes making things even more subjective in terms of deciding on whether someone is right for a or appropriately qualified experience, etc., to run an activity, which is great. The CARA guidelines and recommendations are fairly specific. Queensland-wise, I know the rest of the country is a bit different. Is this going to affect that? Are there going to be changes there? Because now what we've got here is very different to what the CORA guidelines are saying, which are quite almost overtly specific in what they would expect instructors to have in order to run certain activities.
Yeah, I understand, or Phil's put his hand up. Do you want to take that one, Phil? Phil and I actually had a conversation about this a few weeks ago, probably a couple of weeks ago. Phil, do you want to chime in? You're on mute, Phil.
Certainly at the moment, the outdoor environmental centres across the state government centres, are going through a process of seeing where the CARA aligns. So I'm actually chairing the Workplace Health and Safety Committee that's sort of looking at that in the context of the Education Queensland centres, and how they might map back to the good practice guides. That's sort of a work in practice progress at the moment. And there is also talk about the potential for a workplace health and safety officer or advisor specifically to the 24 centres to provide guidelines for state schools. Because don't forget, the CARAs are state school based, and private schools can make up their own mind about how they operate appropriately. So that's where it's up to. So there is a discussion, there's a working group looking at that with the CARAs and seeing how they can cross-match with the AAAS.
But it is a very good question, Jono. Yeah. Thanks, Phil. I'm glad you chimed in there because I was thinking, oh, okay, this is exactly what we talked about. So yeah, it is a topic of discussion, I think. Yeah. Any other questions, comments as we go along? So yeah, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I used AI and literally downloaded a new draft for one of the activities and popped it and the current one into an AI tool and said, can you compare these and tell me what's changed? And it basically came up with a really good summary of the last 15 slides that we just talked about, but it didn't talk about any activity specific changes in that one. But yeah, I just thought I'll see what it says. So I just did it as a bit of a test. I've only done it for one of the 15 or 16 activity specific good practice guides, but I'd encourage you to have a good look at them. But most of the key changes are in the core. So yeah. So that's pretty much it in relation to the changes. This bit's about the process of providing feedback. The draft documents are all available on the Outdoor Council of Australia webpage, and there's a link, and I've just done a little screenshot there to the feedback portal. So what you can do is you can go in and provide feedback on each draft document, or if you want to, you can just do it on one of them. You saw Mark's comment. The AI overlords, I hope they make our life easier rather than harder, but anyway. Basically the process is, it's a survey for each document. Just wanted to say a big thank you to the OCA board, and David Marsden, the project lead. The steering committee for the Australian AAAS, which I'm on or have been on, has been met plenty of times and a lot of work in that. But the biggest work of all, I think, has been the people who contributed to the working groups during the review. There's nearly 100 volunteers through the process, and also the work that everyone on this call and others on other calls are going to do by contributing feedback in this final stage. The Australian Adventure Activity Standard and Good Practice Guides are created and updated by the industry for the industry. So I wanted to say a big thank you for being part of the process to ensure that outdoor activities are delivered responsibly, and please provide your feedback to ensure these documents continue to reflect good practice across the outdoors. So this is literally a screenshot from the feedback portal, just so you know what you're looking at. You can go in there. This person has chosen the AAAS core, and then they've chosen the introduction that they want to provide some feedback on. And then it comes up with a thing saying, righto, which subsection or what line do you want to provide feedback on? And if you download the draft documents, every single line in the document has been given a number. So this is about making sure whatever comment you provide is matched up with the exact section of the document. So it avoids, a comment saying, I think there's too much responsibility on leaders. And then you go, okay, from line whatever, 4,000, I don't think there is that many, line, whatever, this needs to change. So that's what it's all about. And then you can add different types of feedback, including one that says, keep as is, I like the current wording, or I think you need to amend it. So it is the way it's been set up, I think will work really well. And as I said, you can do it for just the core or just a particular activity, good practice guide, or you can do all of them if you really want to go through and provide feedback on everything. All right. This is just a reminder on the project timeline. The consultation phase, this public consultation will close on the 31st of July. So once everyone's contributed feedback, all that feedback will be considered during August, and the final documents are going to be released in September and launched by the Outdoor Council of Australia. Any questions? Has anyone gone in and already provided feedback? That probably should have been one of my questions for you. Don't have to. You've got 2 whole weeks to get in and do that. So, but yeah, it will close on the 31st of July. All right. Well, that pretty much brings us to an end. I have a few non-AAS reminders for you, but still happy to roll back through the slides if there's anything anyone wanted to ask about in there. Here's my little reminders slide, and it's got a little bit congested. So that firstly, the Outdoors Queensland Awards nominations are open right now. This is the 25th edition of our awards, and nominations will close in early August. We've got a couple of new categories. The Individual Achievement Award has actually been split into 2 separate awards for the first time. We've got the Outdoor Professional Award and the Outdoor Volunteer Award. So that's 2 different categories now. The finalists will be announced in mid-August, as it says on the screen there. And after the finalists announced, this is another first time, we're going to have a People's Choice Award. So the public will be invited to vote on their favourite finalists. So that's another new addition to the awards this year. The awards dinner will be held in Brisbane on the 30th of October, which is a Friday evening, and we'd love to see as many of you as possible there. The next big one on the list, which is actually happening before the awards, but the nominations are open now, don't forget that. You can nominate yourself or nominate someone else who's doing awesome things in the outdoors. The National Outdoor Education Conference, or NOAC 2026, is going to be held in Cairns from the 28th of September to the 1st of October. Tickets are still available. and it includes the Outdoor Education Australia Awards. So the program's really impressive. It's online now, and the Wednesday of the conference is also got professional learning and other activities, professional development activities and other activities. And Darren, who's on our call, is part of the OEAQ team who's been organising that and doing an amazing amount of work on the conference. I know, Darren, if you wanted to say anything about the conference. You're on mute, mate. It's 2 people today. Let's see if we can get a third. Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks, Dom. Thanks for Outdoors Queensland support over the last year of organising this as well. I hope most people on the call are planning on being there. We've got about 265 regos already. We will crack the 300 mark, which is, I think, pretty sensational for a regional area conference. It's been 10 years since this national conference has been in Queensland, and first time in a long time in a regional area. So really hoping to give people a enjoyable professional learning experience up in Cairns in 71 days to be precise. Not that I'm counting down, but as Dom said, the program is fantastic. We've got 80 high quality speakers, including many from overseas, and we've got 24 great exhibitors. We've got a full exhibition hall. The industry has really come on board to support us, so that's going to add to it as well. So yeah, I think it's an event not to be missed. The next one of these will be in 2 years' time. So if you haven't thought about it, I think you need to give it a little bit of thought to not miss the opportunity. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah. I'm certainly looking forward to it in 71 days. Righto.
That's right.
Thanks, Darren. The next one there on my list, the Outdoor Recreation and Outdoor Leadership Training Package Review. So that's being undertaken by Human Ability. It's the second draft of the training products actually going to be released for public comment next week. So it's on the 21st of July, but you need to register for project updates by the 20th. So I just wanted to flag that if you're not registered by the 20th, which I think is Monday, you won't be able to access that and provide feedback. Their consultation, I think, is going to run for a couple of weeks. So it's a bit unfortunate that it's happening at the same time as the AAAS consultation, but I would encourage anyone who's interested in particularly the training package and the VET system to get on there and have a look at the proposed changes to the outdoor rec and outdoor leadership training package. I know it's extra stuff that we're asking you to do at the same time, but we want to make sure the training package works for everyone. The last couple are Queensland specific, so sorry to those from interstate, but they're important reminders. So Queensland's new child safeguarding law, which is the Child Safe Organisations Act, it started in October last year, but it actually introduced a reportable conduct scheme which commenced on the 1st of July this year. And that requires organisations to report and investigate allegations of child abuse or misconduct by staff and volunteers. So I just wanted to flag that that is in effect now. Some elements of it come into effect later on in the year, but it is an important development that we need to be aware of. So there's more information on the Queensland Child Safe Organisations on the Queensland Family and Child Commission website. The standards the aim is to prevent harm in business organisations, and then the reportable conduct scheme enables an appropriate response if harm or misconduct does occur. So the other one there, I just wanted to flag, the last one is Queensland Government has a heap of resources on their Sport HQ webpage. They're really valuable for any organisation. I encourage you to check that out. And thanks to Mark for popping the links to the various things in the chat. Yeah, so the Sport HQ, it's actually really good about governance. It's sort of the boring stuff that's important to making sure organisations work well. But there's really good fact sheets about governance and finance and managing complaints, etc. So it is a good process. that's pretty much it, unless anyone has any questions or comments or anything else you wanted to promote. The other reminder I have is don't forget to subscribe to the Outdoors Queensland e-news and socials. It's a great way for us to connect with you. But if there's nothing else, it's almost the auctioneer going. No, all good. Well, we can give you back almost 15 minutes into your busy days. 15 minutes to jump on and provide some feedback on the AAAS. So we'll finish off there. I'd just like to say, be kind to the planet, be kind to others. Oh, you got one, Mark.
Dom.
Yeah.
We were thinking about doing a quick little poll at the end of this presentation.
Thank you, mate. I would have forgotten. Yeah. Before you jump off, can you do this quick poll that we're going to trial? You're going to launch it, Mark?
I'm endeavouring to do so.
I know.
I've pushed the button. Here we go.
Righto. So on a scale of 0, which is pretty low, to 10, which is high, how likely are you to recommend Outdoors Queensland to a friend or colleague? We're not Telstra, etc., but we're just trying this as an option. So yeah, so we'll give you a minute for people to put a thing. It's a shame Nort's at the top of the list and you've got to scroll down to get to the good ones. But anyway,
well, that's learning
I'll
for next
fix
time,
that.
maybe.
Yeah. The default, and you can't pick any number other than 10. So yeah, that's good. Righto. Thank you to everyone who's filled it in. Do we need a bit more time, or we're done? Got a couple more coming in. All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to finish off with my sign off, which is be kind to the planet, be kind to others, and remember to be kind to yourself. Thank you all very much for today. Cheers. Thanks, Mike. Guess we hit end event.
I think so, yes, okay. Thanks, folks.
All right.